those of you in our audience who may not be so familiar with Bioforum, maybe I can ask you to say a few words about you and your role as Chief Data Officer and Chief Strategy Officer. Maybe you can say a few words about yourself, your background, and then we can perhaps jump into some of our questions.
Thanks, Richard. Yes, indeed. Absolutely fabulous to be here and actually see people and see the bottom half of people, not just this part of people, right?
Zoom's been great, but this is different. You know?
It's different, right?
Yeah.
You can give someone a hug, touch them, and it's so great. That interaction is so different when it's face-to-face, right? Just to meet people. So I'm really happy to be here. Of course, yes, you and I have been coming how many years together now, so it's really great. My background, for those that don't know me, I have been in the CRO industry probably for about close to 20 years now. In my previous life, I was working for some of the big CROs or big CRO, and kind of took a bit of a detour, I suppose. I thought at that moment in time to Bioforum, but thoroughly enjoying my role with Bioforum now. I've been with them about 4 years now. And so it's a data-focused CRO. It's a little bit more than, you know, just the bigger blanket of services. So really getting into the data aspects of it. So touching all parts of it. And I think for where we are in the industry right now, it couldn't be more relevant, right? We've got regulations changing. We've got environments changing. And all of it is focusing onto the data, which is really fabulous.
It's nice. It's a good time to be a data manager, I have to say. And I think you and I met partially through the SCDM.
Yeah.
Getting those meetings up and running, which is a hugely successful format. So well done for your contributions there as well. But I think anyone in data management should be really excited to be a data manager right now, which is perhaps a neat way to segue into the first thing I want to ask you, which is, we've both been in the industry long enough that I'm not going to name a date. I'm just going to say more than 20 years for me. But how have you seen the industry change in your time in the industry, and how do you think data managers are going to continue to evolve?
Wow, it's amazing. You know, if I think back to where I started as a data manager, it really was an administrative job, wasn't it? It was piles of paper. I remember those beginning days. It was yellow sticky notes and green pens, QCing or validating the hell out of everything. I can still see these piles of paper around me. And as a junior data manager, if you were not quality controlling or QCing or validating something, then you were physically tracking pages that had been couriered to you in mountainous volumes, right? And trying to them, I can't remember what was the platforms we used back then, but trying to track it, you know. So a large part of my day back then was really administrative. It was paper pushing, if I think back to it, you know.
If you remember, it's the days of, if it isn't written down, it didn't happen.
Absolutely.
You know?
That is so true. I mean, I can still see these cupboards in my mind of what we called a data management study file back then, right? And it was like 3 or 4. We had like 30 files, leave arch, just dedicated to the validation of the database. Like, the sheer volume was insane. And if I think about to what the data managers as such are doing in Bioforum now, it's so different. It's about using your insights, it's about using your knowledge, it's about looking at the data, it's about finding really important components that contribute to the quality and integrity of data. So we've completely gone from this paper world of administration and making sure that all the paper came together, so to speak, to being in a position now where we are really contributing on a very great level to the quality of data at the end of the trial. It's been an amazing progression.
I think that's symptomatic of the change of role, because I think you say something very important there. You know, in the old days, I'll call it the old days, you know, from the time a patient saw an investigator to when I saw the data was what, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks?
Absolutely.
So really our job was to document what had happened.
Yeah.
Now I feel like data management is coming to the forefront. You know, let's face it, often we are the primary point of contact for sites, for those interactions, for data collection. We're almost seeing the data, not before it happens, but very close to as it happens.
Absolutely.
Now, I liked your description there of the librarians, because that's very much where I think, you know, we're the administrators, the librarians of data. As data managers, that's what you hired people who were good at managing paper and documents. Do you still think that's what we're hiring now? Do you think that's how your job is today?
I surely hope not. No, absolutely not, Richard. You're 100% correct. I mean, even thinking about things like typists fell into data management teams. Like I said, it was so driven by administration. And I remember, talking to my colleagues, and as things changed, we were aspiring to climb the ranks. So we were actually in a position to look at data. And even then, we just kind of moved from data librarians to data police, right? We didn't really ever get into the details of it. We just became those that were kind of, grading through the data, so to speak, and then kind of whooping out the errors and, believe it or not, faxing back DCFs or data discrepancy forms back to sites just to have them answer something that was ludicrous. But nonetheless, we were aspiring to that. And if I think about where we are now, the expectations we at Bioforum have when we are thinking about appointing data managers, to be quite honest, I don't really care what your filing skills are. Yeah. We still need to keep abreast of that. But with technology, such as Viva's products, we don't have to be, it's not mountains of paper that are being moved around, right? So for that role, my focus is more on your analytic capabilities, the way that you think, the way that you manage yourself on a daily basis. How good are you at diving in? So I hope not. I hope no one is still appointing with that old school thought process. You'd be struggling, I think, at the moment if you were.
I think so. I mean, I think the role's changed massively. But I think the nature of things, though, the speed, the expectations of speed, but also science.
Absolutely.
I mean, if I think about the first trial I ever did, would have been an early phase healthy volunteer study. It's about as one-dimensional as you could possibly get. I don't think most of the trials I see today are one-dimensional. I'm not even sure they're two-dimensional. I think they're 3- and 4-dimensional. But what's your experience of kind of how the science has moved along as well over the last few years?
Absolutely. You've mentioned it so well, Richard. In my mind, if I think about those earlier trials, it was linear, right? Step A moved to step B, moved to step C, moved to step D. And the data very much followed that same chain, even when it came to external data, as we spoke about it. So there's always been a component that was outside of our EDC environment, if I can say it like that. But it got slotted in strategic places as we did reconciliations, or got added to the data at the end. We never looked at data holistically. It was not A, possible, and B, in this linear process necessary, right? There was no decisions being made on it. Most of the laboratory data was supportive analysis. It wasn't really critical to a primary or secondary endpoint. And if I think about where we are now, we've gone from linear to almost circular now, right? It's hard to determine where the one starts and where the one ends. And that's not even talking about the volume of the data, right? And we spoke about those 5, V's from SCDM, you and I, quite a lot, but they really do apply. The veracity, how different is this data? What does it look like? What's coming in? It's so different. And that linear approach, really, if you were to try and apply that now, I think a company would fail, if I can just be straight honest about it. It's too much to kind of put onto linear scale. And I think that's due to the study designs that have changed so drastically over the years. The fact that we need to think quick, we need to be on our feet, we need to be adaptive. And it's all about the patient centricity, but also about the ability to be able to really guarantee high quality and integrity data at the end of it.
You said something that's really important, veracity. If there's a word that I never thought would be used in the data management vocabulary when I started, it was veracity.
Right.
I think that just sums it up really neatly of how far we've changed. Because when I started, I'm sure it's the same with you, database lock was like, that was your moment. Any level of error was just unacceptable.
Yeah. Heaven help you if you unlock.
Good grief, an act of God where I started. You needed 5 layers of signature to unlock the data.
Absolutely.
But now we're in an era of rolling locks. We're in an era of locking every day. It's become a very different. I want to bring you even perhaps further into the current world. We're all talking about digital trials, decentralized trials. So we've talked a little bit about flexibility in design. What about flexibility in execution? What are you, Bioforum, and your customers feeling in that area?
I think they're very much interlinked as well, the design and, the actual execution around it. So we're in an interesting space, the Bioforum team, because we really very much serve this mid-market, right? So our customers don't always have all the resources, at their fingertips. They are often working with multiple vendors because they need to find the vendor A that's the cheapest that fits their bucket because budgets are real for them. And B, because they just don't have enough people in-house to be able to, I want to say, focus on centralizing things and so forth. So it gets really complicated for them. And if I think about digital trials and, where we are now, well, firstly, I think it would be silly for me to go without saying, I think COVID changed a lot of the mentality around digital trials. I think I'm not going to be the only one who says that to you, but the biggest thing there is understanding that paper weighs you down. And if you get stuck in the paper process, then you get anchored into certain areas. So that first of all is a very tricky place to be. And then, life in general, we speak about things like, if I do my bank, when was the last time you went to a bank, Richard? We don't go to the bank. You pick up your phone and I don't remember when last I was in a bank. Everything is in front of you. So our world has digitized. Everything is around us there. So even if we on an operational level wanted to stay kind of stuck and within our comfort zone of, our paper world, I think life in general is forcing us to think a little bit differently about, how we should be behaving and acting. And the whole drive on patient centricity is another big push there. So not only were you weighed down by your paper in COVID times, but your patient no longer wants to fill out some form of paper form. And that makes things complicated. So for the smaller guys, if you start thinking about what does this mean for them, it starts getting overwhelming, right? Now, I need to think about a vendor for my patient diaries. I need to think about a vendor for my EDC platform. I need to think about a vendor who's going to help me bring all of this together. I need to think about a vendor for the next point, an RTSM. I need to think about a vendor. There's so many components. And the world looks very different for them. So it's been an interesting time, I think, and I think we're heading into a new era in clinical trials for sure. Our regulators are also very much at the forefront of this. For many years, I think industry was taking suggestions to them and asking them, can we do this? And now the regulators are almost, throwing it back at us and telling us, we need you to change. Yeah. So the whole combination of this entire arena really makes it as a very interesting place for a company such as Bioforum that are supporting, the mid-sized band of companies and various academic institutions and so forth as well, to try and, I want to say, pivot and change the way that they're thinking. But that's where partnering with technology vendors is so important and making sure that you've got the right people on your side.
How does that journey change your approach and Bioforum's approach to recruitment, to the data manager of the future, to what data management looks like?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Richard, because it definitely has changed, right? Like I said, if you think about the traditional role, it looks very different. And the regulations are now forcing us to think about our data differently. So, in fact, they're going as far as to tell us to stop blanket cleaning. You no longer need to have 1,000 data checks. So think about how you're looking at that. And if you're thinking about that, then you need to think about what am I expecting of my data manager. It was very easy in the past, right? You had a programmer writing a rule, the data manager had to review the rule. It's very black or white, issue query, don't issue query. Now you're asking someone to look at data in a different mindset, and you're asking them to look at data from a different perspective. And therefore you need a different type of person. I think the data managers that we have are absolutely critical to this process. I've had a lot of people like, oh, my job's going to be replaced by a computer, and I feel like grabbing them and shaking them because they couldn't be further off from the truth. We need that savvy and the understanding of how data works from our current workforce, but we do need to upskill them. We need to uptrain them, and we need to think about where the gaps are. So some skills we can upskill, we can teach them new things, we can show them different things, and then some areas we may need a bit of help externally, and that comes to things like understanding data analytics, perhaps on a technical level as well. You need somebody who understands what it means to bring data together if this was not something that a company was doing before, and that makes, again, and I sound like I'm repeating myself here, but that's where technology vendors are so important. And from our perspective, again, because we're serving this middle band, I really find that there are other services at the top that are servicing the big pharma, and then there's this massive gap, and then the bottom part is kind of do it yourself. And that makes it very tough. So from our side, that's really driven innovation in our company, because there's nothing to offer them.
Yep.
So we need to be smart, we need to be clever, and we need to really think about who we've partnered with and what we're doing, because we need to be as efficient as possible. We need our resources to be as efficient as possible, and we need to make life easy for them, and then thus for our customers. So the way we resource is dependent on the technologies that we're using, and the way we appoint is then dependent on the gaps that we have where we cannot upskill and kind of grow with that. So it's an ongoing journey, and I think it will be. I'm excited to see what the next few years holds, but I think we're going to have to all continue to evolve, as that goes.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what's interesting, and certainly with the partnership we've had with you, I mean, you joined us before we really had a product.
Yeah.
So you got to see everything. And what was interesting for us, and perhaps the most valuable part of that, apart from where you got us to, was actually feeling the real life use case.
Yeah.
Like we can make certain assumptions, but you were showing us what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
And some cases we were pretty close. Some cases we're thinking, we're actually not close. We need to change our approach. So I think having that partnership was truly important for us from day one. And I'm delighted to see it's valuable to you as well, and that we're coming out the side with yet more challenges. But it sounds like there's a lot more work to be done yet.
There absolutely is. And I just need to reiterate that as well, Rich. From our side, our partnership with you solved a lot of problems for us as well. If I think about things like protocol amendments and the just sheer nightmare of what they are in general, on many different levels. It's a pain on a clinical level, it's a pain on a management level, it's a pain to everyone. But by partnering with Viva, who's absolutely the right choice for us, made our lives so much easier in being able to manage, something as painful as a protocol amendment. And it made us 70% more efficient. So for a CRO, that is a significant difference. And that's where, why I say, partnering with the right technology companies to help you drive your goals is critically important.
Yeah. I think you mentioned amendments, which is one of my favourite topics. We'll save that for another day. But also I see Bioforum doing a lot of work in that end-to-end vision of data. Yeah. I think that's an interesting area that we'll continue to explore with you guys as well, because that data journey is, I think, at the heart of everything we've talked about, from
Absolutely.
Flexible in design to flexible in delivery, adaptive, digital. All of them require that true end-to-end perspective, and I think it'll be really exciting to work with you over the next few years as we stretch that story and also reinforce that story.
Yeah.
Because the world is continually changing, as you mentioned.
No company wants to work with 15 vendors. It's frustrating. It's 15 different people to measure. It's 15 people different to connect with. It's 15 different deliverables you need to kind of keep track on. It becomes very tough to kind of manage and to really have full confidence in what your output is at the end of the day, because so many different hands have touched it at different periods throughout the life cycle. And I'm talking about data which people don't often think about as well, such as RTSM data.
Yeah.
We don't often think of that as real data. You're thinking about demography, you're thinking about that's data set, but how this all interacts makes a big difference. And they're very much interlinked. So having that end-to-end, from the beginning right the way to the end, thinking about STTM packages before you even start your trial is actually pretty important, and you can really build efficiencies. So exactly your words, end-to-end data from the beginning right the way to the end of it.
Thank you for all of that, Tanya. As always, it's really interesting to get your perspective on where we're headed in history. But as I've forewarned you, I do have my two kind of magic wand questions that I'd love to ask you and for us to share with the audience. So if you had a magic wand, and you had the ability to wave it, and if there were two things you could just stop doing from this point forward, and two things that you could start doing that you can't do today, what would they be?
Well, I think the start and the stop are kind of linked in my first point, and I'm going to put on my biometrics hat for a minute now. So not just thinking about data management, I'm thinking about the end as well, right? If I think about how much time I see our teams, on various levels, it's whether data management, was involved from the beginning or not, or whether it's a different vendor. Sometimes it's a completely different vendor, a different company. Sometimes it's the pharma company themselves, compared to the statistical team at the end of the day. There is a consistent gap there. And within Bioforum, we try and we bridge that gap, and we've got different things in place there, but it seems to be a very foreign concept for most companies. And it links back to that end-to-end solution. So start and stop in the same kind of breath there, and that I wish we would stop focusing on just data collection and data curation and the data management side, and that we would think about what the end result is. And I'm not just talking about, oh, this is great, we obviously want the trial to be successful. I'm talking about, did I name and create and structure this field with STTM in the back of my mind? And every company will tell you that they're trying to do this, which is great. And I think on a human level we are, but that's the problem on the human level. And that's where it gets left for interpretation. So it's kind of like a start and stop in that one. I wish we would start doing it, and I wish we would stop, like I said, focusing on the one. And then the last, we spoke about the admin around the data management role, and I think we're still pretty admin heavy, Richard. If I think, validations and reviews, they're very important, but a large portion of what we still do in data management is still very human influenced. It's creation of stat listings, it's creation of reports, patient profiles, things like this that are critically important, and by no means can we do away with them, but I would love for that to be automated somehow into a click of a button almost, so that it would really wash the way through. And the last thing I'll end with, I wish we would stop doing, and maybe again it's a link and a start and a stop. We're at a pivotal point for data management in the industry right now. And that is that if you go and read E8 and the details in it, it is literally forcing data management to the front seat. But we're not used to that. So what's happening now for many of our customers when we speak to them, we're telling them you need to be at the decision. I mean, I think I'm going to quote you incorrectly on this section, so I'm not ever going to try now. But I think it's actually under the data management section where they specifically say that data management should be part of the team from study design. Not 12 weeks before database build. Like, it feels to me many companies have marked it in their calendar and we will phone data management on that date. But we need to embrace that. We need to say we have an invitation to that table now, and we need to take it, and we need to be sitting there, and we need to contribute. So I almost want to say we need to make ourselves a bit uncomfortable because we tend to shy away from that as an industry. But I think we fully need to embrace that and grab our seat at the table and contribute at the level which I absolutely know we are able to contribute.
It goes back to where we started. This is an amazing time to be a data manager, it really is. And I think taking on board what you've just said about, not all data is born equal.
Yeah.
And yet we still have that, almost that paper approach at times. Every data point must be perfect. Where's that word veracity in our goal there? I think also, you said something interesting about start automating. A lot of my conversations, I think people are just blurring the intent of AI and ML. There's clever stuff you can do. There's also some very basic, smart stuff you can do to automate. Absolutely. And I think automation and AI are not always the same thing.
I agree fully.
I think our focus, as you know, foundationally, is that automation is to make sure we just take away the repetitive tasks. Mm-hmm. I love the old phrase we used to talk about with Worm, write once, read many times. Oh, yeah. That's still stuck in my head. And I'm still thinking, when you define something once, it should define everywhere. Mm-hmm. To your SDTM example, why do I leave that open to interpretation?
Yeah, why?
Now, I could get into on another day a conversation about whether I think the current approach to standards is the right one, but let's not go there.
We need another hour, Richard.
We need at least another hour and possibly a bottle of wine.
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
that's for sure. But I also think, I love I want to kind of finish on where you finished, and that is the role of data management. Maybe it should be called data scientists. That's another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But that has to come forward. And if you go back to where you started, and we used the word librarian, that's not where data management has traditionally sat. Mm-hmm. We've kind of always been pushed to the back of the room, along for the ride to kind of just come and witness, don't contribute. Yeah. Now I feel like it's the time for us to come forward and say, this is how you should do this.
Yeah.
And I think if we take that position, clinical trials will be a lot more effective. And The one thing I didn't pick up on what you said earlier, and I want to come back to as a final comment from me, is patient centricity. Because I think if data managers help design better studies, I think we'll start to improve patient centricity and site centricity, but also I think it's incumbent upon us to listen to patients. I worry too many ideas were born under the umbrella of site and patient centricity that didn't actually come from a site or a patient, but a vision of what we thought they wanted.
Absolutely.
And I think we're going to change that agenda a lot. But is there anything, final words you'd like to share with our audience? Because I'd love to give you the last say.
I'm getting the last say, Richard? Wow.
Just this once, just this once.
It's always been a great journey, and I think just want to end off with just saying, like, you know, if there's anyone that's listening that's on the smaller side, the mid-band of things, there is hope for you yet. It does feel very overwhelming. But again, I'm just going to say that's like a broken record, but you partner with the right companies to help you achieve that goal. Having, you know, the right companies, the right technology partners is really the key to getting yourself through this difficult time.
Perfect. How can I possibly top that? So there you can keep the final word. Tanya, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure today.